What's doing, everybody? I'm Alec. Thank you for watching First Class Fatherhood. Today's guest on the podcast is former NFL first-round draft pick Benjamin Watson. Benjamin Watson just recently retired after this past NFL season. It's an honor to have him on the podcast today. He is also an author, and he knows a thing or two about fatherhood with 7 children. I'm really looking forward to this one, so don't forget to smack that subscribe button down below. Hit me with a like, and let's jump into it right now with former NFL tight end Benjamin Watson on First Class Fatherhood. Joining me now, First Class Father, Benjamin Watson. Welcome to First Class Fatherhood.
Hey, man. Thank you for having me.
Let's start right here. How many kids do you have, and how old are they?
That's a good place to start, always on the fatherhood. We have 7 children, ranging from ages 11 down to identical twin boys that are about 16 months. So we have 11 and 10-year-old girls, 8 and 7-year-old boys, 4-year-old girl, and identical twin boys that are like 16 months. So we got a lot going on in the house.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah, I got 4 kids myself, and usually people look at me like I got 4 heads when I tell them that. I can only imagine what you get when you tell me you have 7.
We've heard it all. You know, do you guys have a TV in your bedroom? Do you know how that happens? It's like, yes, that's why we keep doing it. Everybody has a smart comment to make for sure. What
kind of sports or activities are all the kids into?
Right now, not much of anything with, COVID. My daughter, my oldest, she does ballet, so she's been doing that for a long time. We've lived in several different cities, but she always picks that up. So she's been doing that for years. My son, my oldest son, my 8-year-old, is really into football. He thinks he's a great football player, even though he hasn't really played at all. So it was kind of funny. He does some flag football. My other daughter's in the track. I mean, we've got kind of the gamut. The younger ones aren't into it as much yet, but I think they will be at some point. But I just want them to play if they want to play, and I don't want them to feel any pressure from me that they have to play. If they enjoy it, I think that's the biggest thing. Not feeling like they have to play because daddy plays sports, because everybody can go their own route.
Yeah, I think one of the benefits, too, today is that there's so many – every sport has its own league. You can give the kids a little taste of everything, and they can pick and choose what they like, so I think that's pretty cool.
Exactly. I think that's important. I think that's important because, quite honestly, we do such specialization now. A lot of parents do, and there's a temptation to do that, to really specialize at an early age. And I think that it does benefit kids to try a lot of different things. You never know what they're going to be good at. You never know what they will attract them. And, and speaking with a lot of orthopedic doctors, they're starting to say that they see more and more orthopedic injuries of younger kids, which means that a lot of these kids are getting overuse injuries that they really shouldn't be having at that age. So, going outside and playing, riding the bikes, I think is good for my kids for now.
Yeah, well said. If you could, Benjamin, just take a second here to hit my listeners with a little bit about your background and what you do.
Well, my background right now, I'm unemployed. Just finished up playing 16 years of NFL football. Been married for 15 years on Thursday, actually July 2nd. And that'll be 15 years for us. So right now I'm kind of in a transition time of figuring out what's next. But I've been a father, as I mentioned before, for 11 years and really consider being a father and being a husband my most important jobs.
Yeah, good stuff. And so how old were you then, Benjamin, when you first became a dad, and how did becoming a father kind of change your perspective on life?
Yeah, we had our first daughter in 2009. And I'm the oldest of 6 kids. And so I knew I never wanted to have 6. So we just went from 5 to 7. We never landed on 6. And I knew we wanted to have kids. I met my wife at University of Georgia in college, and we dated for several years, and we always talked about having 4 kids. Well, we got married, waited a few years, started having kids, and we had 4 kids in literally 4.5 years. And I knew I wanted to be a dad, but I was scared when we actually were pregnant with our first. And it changes your life. People talk about all the time how fatherhood changes your life. I think for me, there was obviously that sense of responsibility, and not just responsibility of taking care of a baby or a family, but of understanding the role of influence that you have on the next generation. I mean, it really is powerful. I mean, I think, when you're sitting there holding your newborn child, you're looking in the face of places that you will never go to, Lord willing, because they're going to outlast you. and how are you going to positively affect that child? What are the things you're going to teach him or her? What are you going to pour into them? And how are you going to do it? It can be very overwhelming. So I remember feeling overwhelmed, and I still feel that way in a different way now. But it really is a tremendous sense of joy as well, because these little people look up to you and really, really need you.
Yeah, well said. I couldn't agree with you more. I love being a dad, and it's like, especially I felt the same way first time becoming a dad, and I felt that all them people that were telling me, "Oh, just wait, you just wait," and I felt like they were wrong. It was a totally great experience for me. Now, we had 3 boys, and then we got our girl on the 4th try there. So otherwise, we may be catching up to you, but we got our girl on the 4th try.
Well, that's what I wanted. If you ask my wife, I was like, "Look, I want to have 4 kids. I want to have 3 boys and then little girl. All my boys will take care of my little girl." And then I started off, with 2 girls, and I thought the world was ending. Especially when I ended up going for number 3. I was like, I don't know if I should go for number 3, because I felt like as a guy, I wanted a boy. But now I tell you what, God was favorable to us because he gave us those 2 girls first, because there is no way my boys will be able to handle and take care of their younger siblings and help us the way our girls do. Seriously. So I was proven wrong. I'm glad that we had her first, but that's funny. That's exactly what I was hoping for in the very beginning.
And you know what? That helped us when we had our 4th kid, was that our older 2 were a little bit older to help us out. Now, for us, I don't know about for you now going to 7, but for my wife and I, going from 2 to 3 was the most difficult transition that we had in our experience here. What would you say was for you, going from which number of kids to which was the most challenging transition for you guys?
No, I would say I think number 1 is the hardest, for obvious reasons. But once you get past there, I would tend to agree with you. 2 to 3, you're outnumbered, and for us, it happened so quickly. Like, we literally had 4 kids in 4.5 years. So, our first 2 kids are 15 months apart, and then they're 17 months apart and 17 months apart for that first 4. And so we literally had 2 babies, and then added a third, and then when we added a 4th, we had 3 babies, literally. And then after that, I would say the toughest was the twins. Shout out to all the twin parents. I don't know how y'all did it. I'm sorry that I didn't give you guys the respect that you deserve. But having those twins, our twins are 6 and 7, number 6 and 7 kid, that was just, I've never been, you're tired when you have kids, but that was a whole nother level of tired for me, and I wasn't even the one carrying the babies. so much respect. So the twins are number 6 and 7. Other than 2 and 3, I would say would be the toughest for us.
Yeah, and definitely those parents that have twins right out of the gate. That's to get hit with 2 just like that. I know, just going to having your first, all the worries, concerns that go with it, to have a double bubble there, man. I definitely. Yeah. A lot of respect for them. What about as far as discipline, Benjamin? What type of disciplinarian are you as a father, and is it different than the discipline style that you grew up with?
So we are a spanking family, but we also are a restriction family of privileges, such as, they just got video games, last Christmas. And so now that's one of the things that can be restricted. Certain privileges that they may have, we may take those things away. We're a mix, though. I think that one of the biggest things about discipline is knowing your child. And so for me growing up, we got spankings like everybody else. We, sometimes we didn't have much that they could take away other than going outside and playing. So we would get grounded sometimes like that. But the biggest thing is knowing your child and knowing how to best communicate with that child. For some children, especially younger children, there is a place where I believe all children need that sort of discipline, that sort of physical discipline. But as they get older, there's different ways you communicate with them. The biggest thing with discipline, though, and what I've tried to implement, is I want to be a disciplinarian that does not discipline when he's angry, and that allows for reconciliation after the discipline occurs. The worst thing for a parent is to have your child mad at you, or you be mad at the child after the discipline has occurred. The whole point of the discipline is to correct something that was done in direct disobedience to what you told them to do, or what is a overarching standard of how you live in your house. After that has happened, the relationship has to be brought back together. And so we'll be sitting there, kid will be crying, I may be crying or just not feeling right about what happened. The discipline happens. After that, there has to be a hug. There has to be an I love you. There has to be a coming back together, because you never want the discipline to get in the way of the communication and relationship you have with your child. It's a part of life, but it's a constructive part of life. And for a lot of times, for a lot of us growing up, and for a lot of parents right now, we're still all tempted to do this. That discipline that happened yesterday could be affecting how you speak with your child today and the next day and the next day. And that's not the nature of discipline. That's not what discipline is supposed to be like.
Yeah, very well said, Benjamin. And I'll tell you what, it's definitely a on-the-job learning process. My wife and I, and you could tell at certain points, you're like, man, I went a little too hard there. And then I'll communicate with my wife and say, hey, you know what? Play the good cop here. Go in, talk to him, and then we'll try to communicate. And this way, we're not coming down together so hard on the same thing. Yeah. But each kid needs to be handled in a different way too, because we have one that you could just threaten him with taking away the device or something like that, and he'll listen. The other one, he won't start listening until you actually take it away from him. So it's always trying to find that the key to to each individual child. And one of the things that is important, and I don't know how single parents do this, because I don't know how I would do it without my wife, especially with the four of them. And I talk about on my show a lot of times the fatherless crisis that we have going on in our country right now. And I think that, combined with the fact that God has been removed from so much of our society, I think those two factors alone are a major reason why we're seeing so much the trouble in our country and why we have so many problems right now. What do you see I know that you speak a lot about the importance of fatherhood, about the importance of your faith. How do we get the fatherless crisis solved in our country here? Nope. Did you freeze up on me? Hey, did I lose you there?
Yeah, I'm back.
Oh, sorry about that.
It sounded like a really good question. The last thing I heard was, what do you think about the importance of?
Right. I'll just shape it back up. I'll edit that out and I'll just frame it back up. I'll say, and one of the things I always talk about on my podcast here is the fatherless crisis. Too many kids in our country are growing up without a father in the home, and I think that, combined with the fact that God has been removed from so much of our society, is creating devastating effects in the country. My question to you would be: I know you speak a lot about the importance of the role of father and your faith. How can we get this fatherless crisis and get more dads back into the home?
Yeah, that's a very serious and important question and topic. Fathers obviously serve a role when it comes to provision and protection, but also on the spiritual side, and not even on the spiritual side, but on just the sociological, emotional side. Fathers are protectors of a child's emotions. They are providers, not just of physical needs, but of emotional needs. Fathers are protectors, so they protect the child from physical threats outside of the home. They protect their child from those who will want to bully them or those who will want to take advantage of them. They're also the prophet in their home. And when I say the prophet of their home, that means that they are the spiritual leader. The man is the spiritual leader of his household. That's not to say that a single mother or that the wife has no role. No, she has a role equal to that of the man. But when it comes to order, biblically, the man is the spiritual leader. When we say that a father is the priest of his home, the idea of the priest, biblically speaking, is he's the one that goes before God on behalf of his family, covering them in prayer, leading them when it comes to understanding and worshiping, those sorts of things. So the role of the father is vitally important. And when you really break it down, you can see how when you remove that, then chaos ensues. And again, that's not to say that a mother that's a single mother can't do a great job. She can. But even if you talk to her, she will say, it'd be great if there was a guy right here that was helping me, because kids statistically have better outcomes when they have a mother and a father in the home. That's just numbers. And also, when it comes to a dad, now no dads are perfect. And But a father is, for many of us, and for all of us really, our first idea of what our Heavenly Father is like. That was much of the weight and responsibility that I felt when I had my first child, because I know I'm going to fall short, and we all are. But I am her first, or his first idea of what it means to be loved, what it means to have a hero, what it means for someone to love them unconditionally. That's what a dad does. And so dads are vitally important for the family unit, but also when you talk about society as a whole, they're important when it comes to that. And so when you look at fatherlessness, it's estimated that, a third of our kids are growing up without dads. Now, some dads aren't married and they're still great dads. They're still involved with, they may not live in the house, but they're involved. And then you go outside of that and say, wow, what are the things that take dads out of the home? So in order to address fatherlessness is twofold. We have to first challenge men that they have what it takes. Whether you had a dad or not, you have what it takes to be a great dad. It's already in you. We believe you can do it. Also, you are needed. We need you to step into that role. If you're married, great. That's preferable. If you're not, you can still be involved. We still need you to be involved. It matters. And so, first thing is we got to encourage men that they can do it, because a lot of what society is telling men is that they don't have what it takes, that they're going to be aloof, that they're going to be distant, that they're going to be ill-prepared, and that they just can't do it, and they have no expectation of doing it, and we expect them to run around and do a bunch of other things. That's what society would tell them. We need to be people to tell them, no, man, we encourage you. You can do it, and we need you to do it. Secondly, when it comes to why men aren't in the home, there's a bunch of different reasons. You look at incarceration rates, extraordinarily high. And so when you look at that and you look at, well, okay, are some communities targeted? Are some communities treated unfairly when it comes to that? What are the situations in a community that create joblessness? We know that those things are linked directly to fathers not being there. So there are a bunch of issues outside of the personal decision that have to be addressed when it comes to fatherlessness. But yes, it is a huge issue, and it is something that if we don't take care of and we don't address in a multifaceted fashion, being personal as well as society at large and situations and circumstances, then our kids don't really have much of a chance, other than them individually overcoming a lot of things, which kids do. You never know the outcome of a child. A child can grow up with no parents and grow up to be whatever he or she wants to be. But the numbers tell us that, and the numbers over time tell us that for that child, things are going to be a lot more difficult because dad's not in a home.
Yeah, very well said, Benjamin. And this is a big part of my show here. And I always make sure to say it's not to take anything away from the single moms out there. And that's not what I try to do by bringing attention to the fatherless problem that we have. But the major part of my show here is what I do is show fatherhood by having all these guys on the show that have succeeded greatly, yet they testify that the greatest sense of fulfillment they've gotten in life has been through the experience of becoming a father. I mean, I've been down there at the Super Bowl. I had a chance to interview Tom Brady, have him talk about fatherhood. I've had, everybody that from Navy SEALs, to high flying entrepreneurs and stuff like that. And it's just important to capture those stories, because I think another part of this issue is that the way we see the dad portrayed on TV and sometimes in the movies and through the media, we kind of see that dad as that doofus guy that kind of,
Exactly.
And we always see him as the guy that's never getting laid. His life he's always got his head down. But that single guy is kind of glorified in the movies and stuff. Like he's sleeping around with multiple women. He's got no responsibility. So that seems like, well, wow, why wouldn't I want that? So it's like I think we need to do a better job, too, of just promoting the father in a better light and telling it for the truth of what a great life transformation it is.
And that's not reality, because, you talk to those guys who the movies are about. And you talk to the guys who have dads, and you said it over and over again. Those guys who have had that life and are now having a life of a dad, hands down, we know which one that they prefer and which one gives them more fulfillment. And so, again, the enemy loves to lie and pervert things. And so the perversion is that you being a father is going to be boring and not cool, and it's not really what you want to do. That's the lie. The truth of the matter is, men, we were made for this. Men, we are needed to do this. Men, you will find fulfillment in being the dads that you were called to be, and you will be taking on your role that you were designed to live in. But But if the enemy wants to destroy society and destroy a family, he's going to go for the head. He's going to go for the dad.
Yeah.
And he's going to pervert things that we know not to be true.
Yeah, 100%. Right on with that. And you know what? Reining it back into you as a dad here, I'm kind of curious just, for myself, because with my 4 kids, one of the things that I try to bring attention to or try to focus on is individual time with each kid, because I know how important it is for them, because we do so much as a family. We pray together, we eat together, we do all these things together, but I know that one-on-one time is important. How do you go about that? Do you have a certain schedule, a certain day of the week? Like, how do you go about making sure you spend individual time with your kids?
Yeah, that's something I've been really challenged with this during this season of life, especially with COVID and stuff like that. And just the fact that we have so many children is wanting to get that one-on-one time. And I haven't mastered it yet. It's something that is a work in progress. What I did do a little while ago was trying to plan a day for at least the oldest 4 or 5, you know, just to plan a day and say, look, what do you want to do today with daddy for an hour? And it's amazing. You realize that, man, you know, when they're together, it's one thing. When they're separately, you see their individual talents and abilities and their interest in a way that you don't see when everybody's together. And one of them said, I want to do a puzzle. You know, one of them's like, I want to wrestle. Like my son said, I want to wrestle. I'm like, really? I do not feel like wrestling. I do not feel like getting on the floor. All right, let's wrestle. But he needed that. That's what he needed. And I can't do that with him with everybody else around. And so, you know, one of them is like, I want to go ride bikes, and I want to ride fast because I don't want to ride slow with the slower kids. I want to one of my older daughters, I want to ride bikes around the neighborhood, just me and you, so we can just go further than we go when we have the little smaller kids with us. And it really was fulfilling for me because it was getting to know them all over again. Because one of the fears I think that I had also about having, you know, a larger number of children, at least from an American standpoint, modern standpoint, is not being able to get to know each of them the way that I wanted to. So that's definitely something that both my wife and I have to be very, very conscious of. And it's something that we don't get right all the time, quite honestly.
Yeah, it's a challenge for myself as well, and I'm dealing with 4 of them, so I can only imagine what it comes with 7, especially with twins at home, and you know, being a high-level athlete. I mean, that's a lot to squeeze in there. And speaking of that, are we definitely done this time with the retirement, or are we looking at another comeback, or what's the plan here going forward?
My wife isn't in here while I'm talking, so I might. No, we're definitely done. She would shoot me the meanest look right now if I even halfway pump faked again. So yeah, we're definitely done. So we're trying to figure out what we're about to do next. We're still living up here in Boston for now, before we possibly move down south. You know, by the end of the year, maybe next year. So, but we are done, man. We are moving on.
Yeah, all right, sounds good. I don't want to keep you here. Last thing I'm going to hit you with, Benjamin, I'd love to ask all the dads that I get on the podcast, what type of advice do you have? I mean, you probably touched on this a lot already, but what type of advice do you have for that new dad or for that about-to-be father who's out there listening?
Yeah, new dad, I would say, you know, you don't have to be perfect to be the perfect dad. You don't. I talked to a lot of dads. I wrote a book about it, New Dad's Playbook, in talking to a bunch of dads, because dads we think we don't have what it takes. We think we've got to be perfect. The biggest thing is not your perfection, it's your presence. It's you being there, and not just for the child. Fatherhood starts right now before the baby gets there. Fatherhood starts with the relationship that you are building with the mother, how you are loving her, listening to her, serving her. You are creating somewhat of the nest that child will be brought into. And so fatherhood is, yes, about your relationship with your child, but also it's about the relationship with the mother, because that relationship is really the most important relationship for that child to see. So you're going to make mistakes, but we all do. And God is faithful, and children are resilient to overcome whatever we mess up. But you have what it takes.
Yeah, very well said. I love the message. This has been an honor for me. I got to say, Benjamin Watson, you're a first-class father all the way, and thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time here on First Class Fatherhood.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.